Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Between the Covers with Erin and Manda. Erin Louis, my partner in crime, co-host, and myself, Momma Atheist. We had this idea to have this book club. Erin, do you want to tell everybody just what the idea behind it was, how we want to conduct it at all? Manda, Erin Louis.
Well, very bluntly, my idea was to talk about anything other than politics and the pandemic. So that was really my thought, was to do to just see and hear and discuss something that was not that. And one of the ways that I have been escaping and distracting myself is books. Obviously, I'm a writer, for those who don't know me. And so that was kind of how the idea came about.
Yeah. And we also wanted to make sure that they were positive books, fun books, something light, just so that we all had something to talk about together that was, not as, it doesn't remind us of this fucking year. So
yeah, pretty much.
So we're just going to go around the room really quick and everybody's going to say who they are. Let me just start with something to say about my co-host, Erin, formerly known as the Brazen Atheist. It is one of my closest friends. She has been there for me through so much. So I just adore her, and I have everybody's links in the description. But if you guys don't have her books, she has 3 out so far. Links are in the description. And she has just finished another one, which I'm sure we'll just talk about. Erin, beautiful. Tell us who you are.
Oh, well, I guess I still am the Brazen Atheist, although I have kind of retired my logo because I'm starting to get into fiction. Obviously, I have 3 nonfiction books about my 20 plus years as an exotic dancer. And I guess my goal here, being online and in front of people, is really to help people express themselves, understand that it's okay to be who they are, and to be sex positive, I guess. That is pretty much what I'm about at the moment. Although I have really been writing a lot of fiction lately. I have a full-length book that I co-wrote with somebody that should hopefully be out relatively soon. And yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And since this is both our shows, Erin has a channel as well, so this will be on her channel too. Miss Julie LaVoice, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Julie, and I love to read. I've got, I love to read. I have all of my degrees are in English, so yeah, that. But I have all of Erin's books, but they're on my phone, and I've got this really bad. This is me admitting this to you, Erin. I've bought all of your books, but I bought them digitally, and I hate reading that way. So it's because that's what I do for work all day when I have work. Is I'm a technical writer and I read digitally all the time. So when I read for fun, I like to just have the actual book in my hand. I think I'm just gonna have to reorder and order the physical one, so I'll actually read them, because I keep wanting to tell you what I think of your books, and I still haven't.
Oh, no worries, no pressure.
Not so bad.
We'll talk a little bit when this is done, and I'll we can work something out.
Yeah, thank you. And my channel is Wine and Reason, and this is a mimosa left over from brunch with patrons earlier today. So that's what's happening here with the very bright colored beverage. That's it.
Thank you, Julie. Just to say about her books, though, when I was sick and went in the hospital with pneumonia, Erin sent me books. So that was really awesome of her. So I sat there. And in fact, I remember the nurse being really interested in memoirs of a stripper. She's like, what is that? She wanted to know about it. So that was fun. Mr. Junkshop Library, or they Junkshop. I don't know if there would be a, sorry about that. Who goes by they and them. How you doing? Tell us who you are.
Well, I'm doing quite well, thank you. Happy to be here. I run a YouTube channel where we normally spend all our time bashing religion and the Bible, with the exception of a small afternoon mental health positivity hangout. So I was absolutely delighted to get to read something that was not written during the Bronze Age. Very happy to be here amongst this august company, and I've got appropriately uppers and downers, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And what do you have a name for the Bible? What do you usually call it?
Oh, the Big Book of War Crimes and Outdated Regulations.
That's it. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great little family. We sit around, and like I said, everybody's links are in the description. Ms. Susan Skiptits, tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm half of a channel, Divine Disbelief. I am unmuted. I had to make sure because my cat keeps meowing and she's like right there. So she's just all like, meow, and I'm like, yeah, you're so cute. So I'm half a Divine Disbelief. We originally, our goal was secular news and opinion, but we've branched out into like politics and social justice and stuff like that. So we have an upcoming video that I've started doing research for that's on a certain Nebraska Cornhusker football coach that I'm very excited to do. As silly as that sounds, that I'm very excited to do that one. I actually, I used to do a lot of music writing myself. I'm a big music junkie, so I used to be a staff writer for Galley Winter, which is like a Texas country music blog and stuff. So I don't read as much as I used to, but when I do, it's stuff that I'm just like, oh my God, I've wanted to read this for so long. And today, I don't want to, jump ahead of anything. I was so excited about this book.
Yes, you were very excited when you found out about it. So I'm glad too. I'm glad that people are passionate about it, and it's something fun and interesting to talk about. So thank you so much. And one thing, Neil, the 604 Atheist, was supposed to be here, but he had a bit of a family emergency. So, but he'll be here next time. My partner, Mr. MathPig, want to tell us who you are, what you do? And a lot of us are on very often, so if you're not subbed to Robbie, to MathPig, he's so close to 1,000. It's a great channel. So the book that we read today was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. There you go. Do you want to talk a little bit?
Well,
you did. That's okay.
It's not even a funny story. It's just one of those things that happens. We had to move. So we packed all of our books up, and I kept saying, I have a copy of Fear and Loathing. It even has, I'm not going to read it to you, but it has from my first marriage, my old married name in it on the inside, which was gross to see again. But anyway, but that's there. And no, got to own that time. I did it. All right. Anyway, so the point is, I have this, and I've had it since grad school, and we couldn't find it, so we ordered a new copy. And the day the new copy came, of course, was the day that we found the copy. So now Junkshop has their own copy, and that's fine.
Miss Julie had actually written some papers on it back in the day, so she'll be able to add a lot to it.
Many years ago. Let me be very clear about that.
But still. Erin, where do you want to start with this? Do you want to talk about the author, or do you want to dive into the book?
I don't even know. It kind of came up on my radar because a friend of mine, somebody I follow on Goodreads, was reading it, and I was like, oh, I saw the movie and I hated it. But I'd always heard so much about Hunter Thompson, and I thought, and I've read a bunch of his quotes and things like that, and I thought, you know what, this might be something I want to check out, especially because I thought the movie was so weird and kind of stupid, and I didn't get any of it. And I'm like, but they rave about it. So there's got to be something I'm missing here. And so that was my initial interest in the book. That, and because I've been I read a lot of horror, so I read tons of like obviously Stephen King and a little bit of Kuntz and some crime stuff and things like that. But really like conventional type writers. So I wanted to kind of branch out a little bit and read different styles of writing and, stuff that was a little older and not so much current. So that was really my initial interest in the book. I gotta say I was at least entertained the whole way through. So most of the running narrative in my head was, what the fuck?
I think that's a pretty good description, but do you feel like you got more out of the actual book than the movie then?
Oh, like 1,000%. Yeah. The movie was really, I think it's really one of those books that they shouldn't have made a movie out of. There's no way to have really, there's no way to really translate the two. It was a ridiculous book to make a movie out of. Great book. I almost want to watch the movie again. I think I watched it when it first came out.
You know that Penn Jillette is in it for like 5 seconds, but
he
Penn's
is?
in it. Yes.
Lyle Lovett's in it too.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I don't remember. I just remember watching the movie and going, "What the fuck is this? I don't understand any of it at all."
I noticed.
I don't know. I was probably stoned. I don't even know when did that movie come out?
98.
How did we? Yeah,
then I was definitely stoned when I watched that. 100%.
Probably the best way to watch that movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, we watched a little bit of it today, and I would admit I was a little stoned. It's one of Angel's favorite movies and also favorite books. But yeah, no, it's definitely there is a lot that is not, because there's so much in the book. Almost everything that Hunter thinks, it ends up in the book, but it skips a lot of that in the movie. And I noticed that. I noticed sections. I was like, wait a minute, they missed this part, and then this happened here. As we were watching through the movie. So it really was hard to translate. And plus to get that feeling of just absolute and utter chaos is hard to translate into a movie.
The movie had really aimed to focus on just the storyline aspect, because there's so much stuff that it's like, how do you translate this? Like it's like, how would you do this? But Terry Gilliam is honestly my favorite member of Monty Python. So it's like the fact that Terry Gilliam did the movie, I'm just all like, I love it so much. So
just some trivia. Johnny Depp lived with Hunter S. Thompson for
that's right. I remember that he kind of mentored him for a little while. Did you know in 1981, Bill Murray did a Hunter S. Thompson movie, and it was fucking awful. Like, it was just him, like, breaking shit. You love it? No, it was,
I do.
It was bad.
Oh, my God. You hate where the buffalo roam, man?
But they tried, and I think they did better with Fear and Loathing, but, it's still, like Erin said, there was just
a development hell for a long time. Like, it was like, I think Scorsese was attached to it. Stone was attached to it for a little while.
That would have been so cool if Scorsese did it.
Yeah, I think it would have been so vastly different, and it would have been a really, really interesting take to see. Mm-hmm. Like, it would just would have been fascinating.
Yes. I think so. The whole premise of the book is kind of it's speaking back to the 60s, because this book came out in 71. The hippie times, the free love that everybody's fighting against Vietnam, and it's kind of chaos, but in a good way. And what he's saying in this book is that it's kind of the end of that era. They're now older, things are calming down politically. People aren't like having free love and stuff like that. And so he's at this kind of juncture where he's still, in that kind of chaotic, because what he did actually, if you don't know, the Democratic Convention of 1968, the one where, they had the big trial and everything, and they got in trouble because they were protesting the war in Vietnam outside of it and stuff like that. He went as a journalist, but had crossed a police line and was thrown through a plate glass window. And he said that moment was when he went from a journalist to a revolutionary. So he was still kind of holding on to, like, he knew how important, like, stopping the war in Vietnam was, and he understood, the feelings of, the mid to late 60s. But he's going up, and him and his attorney are, still in this kind of world, but everybody else seems to have moved on. Everybody else is an adult, and it's like this weird wall between him and the rest of the world. At least that's how I have seen it. Erin, how do you see, like, the purpose of the book itself?
The purpose, I mean, obviously when I was
or what
reading
it's
it,
saying.
What was it saying?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely saw that it was a kind of a slap in the face to basically how people might normally conduct themselves, and how somebody would do business, and how or not business, but how they perform their job, and that kind of thing, and then obviously just kind of bucking the norm, being outsiders, but then pretending to fit in and really kind of not doing it. For me, as I was reading it, though, I wasn't analyzing it in that way. For me, it was very much, and usually just the way that I tend to read when I'm reading any type of fiction, my thought is usually how it makes me feel, the emotional part of it. I'm putting myself in that situation and how would I react. So I'm not really looking at the bigger picture or the overall theme of the actual story. It's more of like writing along, watching them go through this thing and being like, what the fuck? I was really glad that I had actually done acid at one point in my life when I was reading the book, because I think it added to the experience.
That's my favorite question about this. I'm sorry, just to interject for 2 seconds. That's my favorite question about this book, because I never have. Acid is one thing I never did. And so I always ask my friends who've done it, like, so how realistic is this? So that's back over to you.
Oh, I don't know that there's any real, I was a lot younger, by the way. But I don't think there's any way to explain it, because I think it is so individual. It's such a head trip. So I guess when I was reading the book, I was reading it from more of an introspective type position, and not really like what he was actually trying to say in the world. I was taking it as an individual journey, and what he went through. But when it comes to actually like doing LSD and those kinds of things, because mostly when I was a teenager, like before I had to like pay rent and shit.
Yeah.
And it was, but like trying to compare those experiences, like if I go and I talk to somebody that had done that, even if we were in the same room and doing it at the same time, you would get two different stories and not necessarily be able to connect the two. I don't think it's something that you can really explain, because it's like, it's super personal. I mean, you're literally like fucking off your brain cells. So I think it's just a really individual, like tailored experience. I wouldn't really know how to describe it. Like that was one of the things, like I never asked anybody to do it with me or anything like that, because you never know how it's going to affect somebody else. Because I've heard of people having really rotten, bad, like scary, like psychotic breaks and bad shit happen. So it's not something that I would ever advocate, tell anybody to do, but it's also something that you really can't, I don't think that you can really actually describe the experience. It's really unique, I think, to the individual. And I think that's just by design. I mean, you're literally fucking with your brain. So
I think
that it's
something interesting. He has that line when he's going through, I think it's like circus or whatever that weird crazy carnival one is, and he said, a person on acid can take like seeing their dead grandmother climbing up their legs with a knife between her teeth. Yeah, but this shit I cannot take. Like,
casino is more than I can handle.
That felt like, it felt like it described it really well.
Yeah, and I thought so. I thought it was interesting because he's got this bit around page 67 talking about the acid wave hitting San Francisco, and I also think it's important to remember that he was not a super young man when he was writing this. He was born. He was not the young 18-year-old draft dodger. He'd already been in and out of the military. He was an older dude in this scene. But what happened when acid first came out, for people like us, acid was something we, or in my case, my friends, because I was chicken, did to have fun when they were teenagers. But this was very different when it came out. People really thought that they were gonna break into some higher form of consciousness or metaphysical something or other that as atheists we have a hard time even going, what does that mean? But they really did. They thought that it was gonna take them somewhere. And he writes really beautifully about the beginning and the end of that, and how it just kind of okay, I'll just freaking read. It's short. I'll just read it. So now, less than 5 years later, you can go up on a steep hill in Las Vegas and look west, and with the right kind of eyes, you can almost see the high water mark, that place where the wave finally broke and rolled back. And so it's this. He knows that it's not the same, and that it's not. There's not going to be any better living through chemistry, through LSD in this situation. But
he was actually involved in one of the acid circle tests experiments.
Yes.
So Kesey, I want to say how to pronounce it. It's Kesey. So he knew that it was something to not just get high on or whatever. That it was something to expand, and so.
See, and that was my thought actually because I did as a teenager when I did it, I understand that people put in the supernatural and the spiritual part of it, but it really does, you are altered forever once you do it. I don't know if that, I don't think you're reaching a higher level of consciousness or anything like that. I think literally you're fucking with your brain, but it does change. You do see things through a different perspective, and that stays with you. It changes the way that you view the world. So I absolutely, and when I did it, I don't know if I was still a believer, but I definitely still had a concept of a higher power and something. I grew up with that, so that took me a while to let go of, because I thought that was just a given, the sky is blue. But so when I was doing it, I did have a concept of that, but looking back on it now and just my own personal experience, it absolutely changes the way that you view the world. When you wake up the next day, you're altered. Your brain is altered. The way that you interact with the world is changed. It doesn't fade away. It's not like a hangover, but you learn to you look at things differently. When I know nothing about the chemical reactions or what it actually does to your brain, I probably don't want to know. But definitely see why that was something that people felt like it was a spiritual experience or consciousness, probably in the same way that they use other hallucinogens in different religious ceremonies, because you really do think different when you're done, for better or for worse. I'm certain it's not beneficial for everybody. Like I said,
that's
I am not advocating the use of LSD.
I think he does a really good job, though, in his writing. Kind of, you feel almost like you're going through some kind of trip reading this book. The way that he's able to just I think about that scene when they first come in to get the press passes, and he's sitting at the bar. And there's blood soaking into the carpets, and everybody's turning into lizards and stuff. But the way he describes it, even though you're probably not on acid while reading the book, you can kind of get that sense of how he's, in this case, it's kind of a bad trip, obviously, and he's starting to panic, but you feel that, and that's what a lot of the book seems to express. It makes you feel as if you're going through all of these things with him.
See, and that was how I felt, but I wondered how somebody who had never done it, and Julie, obviously this is you, is how somebody who had never experienced that. Because for me, I got it the whole, I mean, other than like, there was a plethora of drugs in there that I wasn't even sure what, I mean, I was a stripper for 20 years and there was shit I couldn't identify. I had to like Google. I'm like, I don't even know what this is.
Oh yeah.
What the hell are they doing?
I had to ask my
But,
Honey?
what an ample was. They said that's a popper.
yes,
Of course.
yeah,
Of course.
I was like, what the hell is that? I'm
I'm surprised Quaaludes weren't in there. Like there's shit in here that people haven't been doing recreationally in a long time. And then there's stuff that they weren't really doing recreationally. Like you didn't really hear about animal tranquilizers. I mean, PCP you heard about, but animal tranquilizers like Special K, you didn't hear about that until, or at least I didn't until like the early 90s. So I don't know, it was a lot, but I've never done acid, but I have eaten mushrooms. So I had some idea. Did that once when I was 19, statute of limitation, bitches. I don't do it anymore. So leave me alone. But that was actually a really beautiful experience. But I did have a moment of paranoia. Like we'd eaten them and then we forgot we had meant to get a particular movie, and we go to the video store. This is how long ago this was. We go to the video rental store, which for you who don't know what that is, I'm not going to explain. And we went and we rented a video. And while we were waiting for that to happen, I like whispered to my boyfriend at the time, "We have to get home now. I have to be home now. It's too sunny in here and it's weird." And they were like, "Okay, let's go home." And we did, and then it was lovely. And I had a lovely time. But yeah, there are things that are just too much when you're in that.
MathPig, go ahead, honey.
I was just saying that I've watched the movie a bunch of times, like an absolute bunch of times. And you watch it with your friends, you're sitting having a drink and all the rest of it. And the first time I had the same sort of feeling that Erin had, it was like, what the fuck? It's just, the movie, I didn't really like the movie the first time you watched it, but then after reading the book today, as you explained, Manda, there's an awful lot more detail as you would find with every book, and you feel more attachment to the book because it's just you sitting reading the book and having you there, and we could banter back and forth about it and stuff. It's not a group of guys sitting watching a movie. The book really does drag you that so much deeper into it and makes it more real to you.
Yeah, I felt this like the same way as both you and Erin. I remember, I think Angel and the Kids was the first time I've seen it. I've never watched it. I know it's been out for a while, but the Angel and his friends fucking love this movie. Like seriously, I've seen them watch it like at least 10 times. But I was like, I don't really, it's not that I didn't really get it, but it just felt like a lot. Watching it a couple more times, I started to like it more, but especially because they did and it was important to them. But reading the book kind of, moved that along. Susan, how did you feel? Did you feel that same kind of like chaotic nature reading the book?
Yeah, it's funny because I really love like art-wise, I really love surrealist stuff. So the surrealist writing that gets very sort of like descriptive with the trips and stuff, it's just like, oh my God, like I love this so much. And it's just like, because I had first read the book, I think like my junior year of high school or something like that. So it's like it's been a very long time since my initial read of it, so I can't exactly remember my first reactions to it and stuff. But through the years and everything, like rereading it and rewatching the movie and stuff, it's just like this is like there is a reason that there is like an entire genre of writing coined after after Thompson's writing style. Yeah, like this is what people aspire to do. And for good reason, and the, when you're, because it's a relatively quick read for me anyway, because you can get so engrossed in it.
It's not a big
like his writing. Yeah. Like it's not super long, but you can get so engrossed in it and everything. So it doesn't take you a super like long time to read it. Like if you just, is that me?
I thought that was me.
It's just like I don't know if that's me. I'm sitting in a different room than I usually do, so I was just like, it's possibly me.
It was actually first published in Rolling Stone as there are two pieces of it. So
yeah, two separate ones.
It wasn't the books begin with, so it's not the longest, but yeah.
Yeah, and they had to like make some differences between the Rolling Stone version and the actual book version and stuff. Like,
there's some vocabulary involved in those decisions.
like there was some attorneys involved and not ones that were on the bender with him. So
yeah. Well, then speaking of attorneys, what kind of impression do you guys get from the attorney, the Samoan? Erin, let's start with you.
Oh, I got the impression that he wasn't an attorney, or he was like the type of attorney like the dude on The Simpsons. You know what I'm saying? Like he was like got his degree, you know, mail order. I was gonna say online, but then I realized it would have been before that. So I got the distinct impression that he was not any kind of a lawyer. That was my thought.
Is he really?
Just the show. Yeah, that didn't. He sounded more like a bouncer. You know what I'm saying? That like took a couple of classes at community college and came close to being a paralegal. Like that was my thought.
How about you, Junkshop?
About the lawyer specifically?
Just what impression did you get of him?
I think he really was an attorney.
It's a really bad one.
Well, I think he's burned out. I think he doesn't give a damn anymore, but he knows enough of the loopholes and enough of the ways around stuff that makes him handy.
Yeah.
And
do you guys think he is actually crazy, or do you think that's just all the drugs? I mean, there's so many times that he.
I think that's what they call in the rating for the movie related bizarre behavior.
There's this is this is the problem with being in academics too long, but there's a literary analysis theory that the lawyer doesn't exist, that he's never there.
Really?
I've heard of that.
He's just in Thompson's mind, like helping him to keep straight enough to function in the world as he goes through the situation. Now I love that theory, and I don't think there's a lot of evidence for it in the book. Like and by the way, when I say theory, I'm not saying scientific theory. This is literary theory.
We know.
All right, so don't anybody write nasty comments in Erin's comments. Don't do that. Since I know what the difference, liberal arts degree, I'm saying right here. But I don't love that theory but the only evidence that could possibly be true is even with the ease of travel, of air travel in the early 70s and late 60s, early 70s, for him to have he disappears and reappears very conveniently. And that's one reason why some people thought that he was just a literary device that Hunter S. Thompson made up to sort of be this other voice happening in the book. So.
Yeah. And to kind of, you think it was keeping him grounded, or do you think it would have like made it worse for him?
It doesn't make any sense at all if he's there as a stabilizing force, because every time the attorney's around is when things go to shit. The attorney's the one pulling guns on people. The attorney is the one
Bowie knife
who's all over the damn. So the attorney is the one smashing mirrors.
But if he's doing it, if he's doing it, Raoul Duke / Thompson isn't doing it. Is the thing.
Yeah.
So
it's very like you can
not around. Everything's fine.
That's true.
He's drunk and he's high, but there's no chaos going on except for the time he tries to buy the monkey.
Yep, that's a fair
But when the questionable ethics of the sexual stuff comes in with the girl, which is what kind of got me, the attorney was the one that did that shit. And that makes me wonder if the attorney was maybe more of a scapegoat.
Well,
that he did really bad shit, and then the main guy could be like, well, it wasn't really me, it was just this guy. So you know what I'm saying, kind of like a Jekyll and Mr. Although they were both, I guess, Jekylls, or Hydes. But you know what I'm saying, they were both bad news, but he did seem to do the worst ethically speaking. And the other dude was like, oh, here he is, especially like the bathroom scene. God, that was gross. But And you know what I'm saying? But when the girl got brought in, in that part of the book made me kind of nervous.
Yeah,
and then
it really
they
did.
didn't really go into detail about what happened, but obviously some sketchy shit happened with the girl, and that was all the lawyer. So, and it never occurred to me that he might not actually be there. But to be honest, that makes a lot of sense to me. That actually kind of explains a bit. If I could see him using that as a way to hand off the guilt of the really bad shit.
I
And
think the girl
also
scene.
the last third of the book is so terminally boring after the lawyer leaves.
Yeah.
As soon as the lawyer leaves the last time, it is a snooze fest all the way through to the end of the last cover.
If you notice that part, like the part with the girl is so it's visceral the way you feel about it, but it's
Did not like
worse in the movie though. Yeah, no.
We were rewatching the movie today. Like it seemed just creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the movie now at all. I need to. I probably watched the movie when it first came out in, what did you say?
98.
98. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't remember. I have to watch the movie now because I don't remember.
Yeah. But no, in the movie she's very timid and stuff, but in the book she reads as like she's looking at him like she wants to stab him, and as if he's come in and disrupted whatever they're doing. So in the movie she seems like more of a victim, but it's still so gross. And they describe her as, you know, she has a face of indeterminable age, you know, but she obviously when you see the movie it's I can't remember the name of the actress.
No,
she played Christina Ricci. Thank you. Yeah, so young, and it's just like at that. Like, there's so much that goes wrong with the lawyer. Like, he's so fucking nuts throughout the whole thing, and he's violent and he's cruel. But up until that point, you know, at least you know he kind of had Hunter's back. But then you get to this point with the girl, and you're just like, fuck this guy, like this is wrong. And in his mind though, he thinks he's doing the right thing, and Hunter then explains to him, well, we need, you know, in order to get rid of her, because he knows this is a fuck situation, he's like, well, these cops here, because they're at the DA convention about you know, and that's why they're there covering it. He's like, well, they're gonna end up gang raping her, and it's just like
on drugs right now. And it's a convention of DAs for narcotics officers.
Don't they find like he has the suitcase and he's like, oh, they're just samples.
Samples.
Yeah.
They used to do that is the thing. They go and give presentations with a suitcase full of real drugs so that narcotics officers would know what they were. This was something that was being done at the time.
Yeah, and I'm of the age where DARE was very, very prominent.
Mm-hmm.
To where it's all like, hey, here's a suitcase full of what you might be offered, so don't try it. It's just all like,
make sure you smell and take a little taste though, so you know it's the real thing. Like,
it was very educational and helped out later. I never got sold nutmeg, is all I'm saying.
So Hunter's writing, especially once he writes Fear and Loathing and Beyond, is considered what is they call gonzo journalism. What does that mean to each of you guys? Go ahead, Erin. I'll start with you.
I have no idea. I was hoping you were going to ask somebody else first. So then
well, then we'll ask the actual literary scholar. I mean,
yeah, there you go. Yeah, why are you talking to me?
Because you're the author.
I did
got all the books
for 14 years. So yeah, I do know the answer to this question.
Thank you, because I honestly didn't know either. I had to look it up. So no, don't feel bad, Erin.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that everyone knows. I'm sorry, I'm talking right in your ear. I apologize.
It's okay.
It's tight. If Junkshop goes deaf, it's my fault. So it's called gonzo journalism, Gonzo. Gonzo later got used as slang for like going crazy or going kind of round the bend a bit and like needing to come back, pull yourself back. But gonzo journalism is a form of journalism where you're writing nonfiction, but you use surrealism, as Susan said, and a lot of hyperbole. There is no way, for example, that they did all of the drugs they claim to have done in 48 hours because they would be dead. Like
Dead.
there's just no. So and you're supposed to kind of get that going in, but what it gives you through that hyperbole and that beautiful language is, because I mean, yeah, a lot of it's disgusting and a lot of it's gross, and you have a lot of visceral reactions, but it's because of the way that he's writing, and he's writing it so over the top that it works. And instead of being over the top to where you're like, this is flowery nonsense, it's over the top to where it hits you like music hits you, in a way. If that's a good example.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What I used to tell
And
people.
considering the fact that this is the same guy who like ran with the Hells Angels and wrote about the Hells Angels for a good while. Yeah. Like Thompson was in the thick of it, for pretty much anything that he like wrote about.
He was also in the '68 Nixon campaign as well. He came in and was told when he talks to Nixon, all he was allowed to talk about was football. And then he ran for sheriff somewhere. When I can't remember where it was, but I think that's hilarious. He ran for sheriff somewhere, but on the platform of decriminalization of drugs.
It was the Freak Power ticket is what it was called.
That's a very kinky Friedman sort of stance. I like that.
It's got the fist is like green and with a purple heart, or purple with a green heart. It's kind of like your logo, Momma Atheist, actually. But no, it doesn't look at all like your logo. I'm teasing a little bit. He ran on that ticket in Colorado, Aspen. That's it. I was like, where everyone goes to sleep. And lost, sadly, or maybe for the best. I don't know. It's hard to call. At that point, he was in a situation where he was so notorious that he pretty much just stayed on his land and like where he lived and really didn't leave much because he couldn't, people would mob him and he did not take to that well. And he did like to do things like shoot guns at night in his backyard and stuff like that.
That was what a lot of the Bill Murray movie was about, right?
Yeah.
Him in that cabin just going fucking nuts.
Yeah, FYI, you're not the only one who was not a fan of that movie. By all accounts, neither was Hunter S. Thompson. He was not.
No, I remember reading that he was not a fan of it. Do you have anything to add about gonzo journalism, Susan?
Well, I think the main thing was like Thompson, his whole persona that had sort of been, I mean, it wasn't really cultivated because I think a lot of it wasn't necessarily his fault, quote unquote. People had a very hard time separating Hunter S. Thompson from Raoul Duke. They had a very, very difficult time separating those two. So yeah, when he would he couldn't leave, there was this myth surrounding him that he was just like, fuck, I fucking hate this. So it's, it made it really, really hard on him. And when you gain that kind of notoriety and stuff, it's rough. So there's stuff that I imagine we'll talk about later that I completely fucking understand.
There's
an edition of the movie Fear and Loathing where they have overdubbed commentary from Thompson himself.
Really?
I
did not know. I'm sorry.
Wow.
The thing was the studio, the Criterion Collection staff had to send their moderator with a tape recorder out to his little compound because he refused to leave it. He was getting on up there at the time when they finally recorded this. And he does things like take breaks from the recording session to wander outside and shoot guns in the air. You can hear it in the background. He'll stop and do a line of coke off the table right next to the tape recorder and then right next to the microphone. The reporter
right.
Like just stop and you can literally hear her face in her hands and then she'll say real muffled, "Oh Jesus, Hunter." Through the entire movie. It's a brilliant piece of
Okay, well now I
Performance
know.
art, for lack of a better term.
Now I know
Yeah,
what's on my
yeah,
list. I
find
have
that.
to know about this now.
I
I
think
did
one of
love the
the
little cameo. I did love the little Hunter S. Thompson cameo in the movie too. I loved that. I love it. It's just all like, I forgot about that because it had been so long. Like I watched it last night and I was just all like, I totally forgot about that. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I need to watch that again.
I think it's important to, like, you know, a lot of books you read and it's not, it's just what the fiction they write or whatever, but there is so much of him in this book. And I think you know, you have to be able to look back on who he was and his life. And this book itself became incredibly important in terms of like the end of the counterculture movement and being able to still express that there are people here fighting, you know, even though it's this just weird drug-filled journey, it has this, you know, deeper meaning and it's saying something. So
yeah, and that something is in large part the central question of the book, which is what is the American dream now? We're still in Vietnam. The summer of love is long over. Charles Manson is in prison. You know, we're getting they're all the I when rereading it this time, I noticed way more than I did when I read it the first time in my 20s, all of those headlines and newspaper stories that he reads. And it's like the one about I think it was supposed to be shocking, but it was the one about a man goes nuts and shoots 5 people for no apparent reason. And I was like, oh, that was like a Tuesday last year. That was, you know, and I'm not trying to be heartless about it, but like that was the actual note I wrote down. I was like, oh, in 2018, that was a Tuesday, like, because that's gotten so much worse. But I think those headlines, he's trying to show us like, this is how much things are changing. This is how much things are getting worse. We have more access to more information, and we're committing war crimes in Southeast Asia, because there's that bit about American soldiers torturing people and saying it doesn't matter because racist epithet, right? And yeah, you're right. I mean, it was like it's the end of the counterculture, and what are we going to do now? The war on drugs is starting, and all this other stuff is happening. What are we going to do?
It's a profoundly sad book.
It really is.
Which I was not expecting going in, because the movie is this delightful, ridiculous, nonsensical romp in the sun.
Yeah.
Is just these 2 burned out old hippies trying to get through the world's weirdest work assignment. And it goes and it goes, and they finally wrap the fucking job and they're ready to go home, and a telegram comes and says, now go do exactly the same damn thing but with cops.
Yeah.
They have to go do that, and it's like they're just sort of scavenging out of the end of this time in their lives when they could do anything they wanted to, whenever they wanted to, for any fucking reason. And now they're at the beck and call of somebody back in New York that they don't even have a face for, who's setting them up with Portuguese war correspondent photographers that they never apparently meet, and it's so horribly sad.
Yeah.
And that was my job, was to bring it all down. That's what I do. Sorry.
No, that's the direction I was going in. I was trying to say.
I think that was a dual. All right, never mind. Not important. Erin, I think, was going to say something.
Yeah.
Oh, so seriously though, one of the coolest things about having people here is the fact that when I read the book, I was kind of looking at the way he was describing things in the scene, and I'm looking at it kind of in terms of looking at a different style of writing. I knew nothing really about Hunter S. Thompson going into this at all, almost nothing at all. I watched the movie, you know, back in the late 90s one time, thought it was weird, and so honestly, your guys' breakdowns, Julie in particular, and is really giving me much more insight than I actually got from reading the book in the first place. So it was really it's more like I'm learning more about the damn book that I read from you guys than I actually took out of it myself. So, but I did think that as I was reading it and I realized he was writing another character, I did have a hard time trying to distinguish what parts were his character and what parts were him, because I knew that it obviously wasn't all him, but there's no way to get around the fact that that's just a complete work of fiction. He couldn't have written that way and been painted that type of a picture had that not had like been rooted in a lot of truth. So for me, I was kind of looking at it from that perspective. I really, in the end, I got the sad part, and that was when I got, oh, this was really a lot more than a drug trip. And I didn't really, I got it on a real superficial level, partly because I didn't understand a lot of Vietnam when it was happening, other than a lot of people died and we were there too long, and I didn't really understand a lot of the political implications of it. So a lot of that I didn't really take to heart. So for me, your guys' analysis of it is teaching me far more than I learned on my own.
No, I actually knew very little about Hunter S. Thompson before the first time I was introduced to the story. I think Angel had the book. He's had the book for a while, though he lost it. His ex took it from him and kept it. But I had read not all the way through it a while back, but that was before I knew anything about him. And I think that it's really a good way that you have that blank slate of it and your perspective, as opposed to the like Julie and Susan, who know a lot about Hunter himself. Do you think so? Let's take it to the point where, because we know he died in 2005. Unfortunately, he took his own life, and we can discuss that after a little bit. But if the way that he was kind of pointing out, like, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing now? Look at what's going on around us. What do you guys think he would say now? Do you think that he would say, look, this is still happening? Do you think he'd say it's getting worse? How do you think he would react in terms of what he was saying in the book itself to what is happening in the world today?
More drugs, and he'd be shooting people instead of into the sky.
No, I actually have thought about this, because many times since he died. I mean, we look back on the days of W with nostalgia now, but there are many times when I was like, oh, Hunter, God damn it, we need you, man. But then, this whole farcical thing, it would be scathing. I can tell you that much. I'm absolutely certain it would be scathing, and like somebody would need to give them time for their bones to knit afterwards, just by the sheer ferocity of the prose that would have been written about a certain person over the last.
Oh no, we lost her. She was playing with her camera, so she probably just accidentally pressed the button.
Anyway, Susan, what do you think about? I mean, I just gave a bunch of adjectives, but what do you think about?
There she is.
Okay. Sorry about that. The whole screen froze. I couldn't see anything. I didn't know what else to do except get out and come back in. So my bad.
Okay. That's fine.
That's the only appropriate action.
Go ahead, Susan.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi hates me right now. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's funny, like, thinking about Thompson and what his reaction would be to stuff today, because it's like, I would be very, very curious to see, today's equivalent of Fear and Loathing in general, not just Thompson's general, like, attitude towards everything and stuff. But I would be very, very interested to see what it would look like to see, like, a story like Fear and Loathing set today, like how all of that stuff would work, and all of the different political implications and everything with all of the,
Yeah. And the different drugs there would be a different trip and a different kind of reality, because it's just drugs itself is different. Like, Erin said earlier, there are things she didn't even know. I didn't know, what certain things were. There's so much of it.
I think
I don't think anything like that would come close to flying today. There's no way he's renting any kind of a car. There's no way he's going into a hotel. There's no way he's doing. I can't see any of that today happening at all. I think they'd be shut down so freaking quick they wouldn't even know what hit them. It'd be really hard to not stand, to blend in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, unless of course they blended in better than they did in their own heads, which is kind of a, when you're really stoned and you're at a party and you think everybody's looking at you and they're not really. So I don't know, maybe they would be able to fly under the radar, but and I am not as hip on the drug scene as I used to be, but especially
I never have been, so
even a couple years ago, well, even stuff, I mean, I've tried a lot of stuff at least once here and there, and have been, lucky enough to have done it in a situation where I've been safe and, with people I trust and stuff like that. So a very responsible experimenter, I guess. But that was a long time ago before I was mom and stuff. But because I danced, up until only a year and a half ago since I quit dancing, plus I worked in Vegas for a couple of years. So, I've seen a lot of overdoses. I've seen some near overdoses. I've seen a lot of weird drugs. I've seen a lot of people on weird drugs and multiple drugs, things I wouldn't even want to experiment with. Like you said, some of like the horse tranquilizers and some of the, there's some funky shit out there. I've never seen anybody on PCP though. I guess, I don't know. One thing I missed that.
Yeah.
But I've
seen
seen some crazy shit, man, and I just can't imagine that kind of drug trip flying in any way, shape, or form in public at all. Nor do I think somebody would get away physically with doing the amount and the volume of what they did, even if we say the actual experience was about half of what they actually did.
Yeah.
I think in terms of like daily drugs, because even pot is stronger now. And I'm not sure that if you got anything called, like if somebody said, hey, I got acid for sale, I'd be really skeptical that was the same type of acid that was even available in the late 90s, let alone what was available in the 60s. So I think that drugs have gotten a lot stronger, but I don't.
Even pot itself I've heard people say that it's so much different.
Oh, definitely. I laugh all the time about getting, back in the day when I was a teenager, you had the choice of getting, the brick weed that came from Mexico, that literally was in a brick and had seeds and, was dirt cheap, relatively speaking, as opposed to the stuff you get now. I don't think you could find, well, I don't know. Maybe it's in the South. I'm in California.
It's not just
like the pot capital of the United States. So
I'm in Oregon.
It's not just the quality of weed.
I don't know if brick weed is Mexican. Like I always thought it was really funny when people were talking about, they're smuggling weed over the border. I'm like, why would they do that? It's way better here.
But they've genetically modified weed since in the last few decades, and it's just they said that it's like I think 30% or 40% stronger than what it was back then. But there's that one part where the lawyer, the attorney does the entire sheet of acid, and he's begging to have Hunter throw the radio into the bath. It's just in this like weird like green oil, and Hunter says that he takes one of the biggest grapefruits and just chucks it at his head and throws it back and grabs the radio and runs out of the room.
Runs off.
But that was one of those moments where I was like, fuck me, the attorney is like, he needs to just
die.
Yeah, it's
I thought he was gonna die at that point.
Yeah.
There was a whole bunch of points in just reading about the volume of chemicals that they were ingesting, and then the booze on top of it. I mean, how do you
I keep forgetting about the liquor.
Understanding how much alcohol you can drink? Like when I drink, I have to be really careful because I get sick hella quick. But there's a point where I lose my judgment, and so I can't imagine that. There's no possible way that they could have done exactly what they said in the book and still been walking. I see that. But now even a quarter of that stuff, or it's relative counterpart for today. I would not even, nope.
I would not
I don't see any that story flying in reality in today's terms.
Yeah,
I will
there's
say one
definitely
thing
been
that-
exaggerated.
Yeah, one thing that would stand up now is the indictment against capitalism, because he keeps asking that question, why are we here? What's going on? What is the American dream? What is that? And the American dream essentially was, you can come here and prosper, right? And so he's at a casino, and the way he describes all of the people, especially in part one, all of the people, trying to win money at the casino, and how they look, and that they think they're gonna stumble out of a stale casino with a fortune in their pocket. But the thing is, the house always wins, right? And we know this. And the same has happened, and was happening at that point in our history, in the and I think we're all aware of it. Like, I remember a teacher coming into my 9th grade class and talking to us about and telling us straight up, like, look, you're going to be the first generation of Americans who are not going to do better than your parents. It's pretty much inevitable, just so you know. And she had good reasons for it, and it was very disturbing, because like, my parents did really well on high school diplomas, and I've got a master's degree, and most of the time I could afford an apartment. A couple of times I couldn't. Anyway,
No,
the point is that, like,
exactly.
Where is it? And it's like the idea that you're gonna somehow be here and make it big and become incredibly wealthy, like all of that, it's nonsense. And I love how he runs out on that hotel bill when he does the savage burn on a hotel in Vegas, because I'm like, you know what? Yeah, just screw. Yes, that's irresponsible and it's stealing, and I normally don't hold with that kind of thing. But in this book, I don't care. Yeah, screw it. Don't.
And it's very true to his principles. Like he said early on, skip the misdemeanors, go straight for the felonies.
Well, and he really expresses that fight against the establishment when he's standing in line at the hotel for the DA convention, and there's that cop in front of him that's yelling at the gay the guy that works there. I can't remember.
Concierge or whatever.
Yeah, and he's like, sorry sir, your reservation got transferred. We had an overflow, and the cop is freaking out. And he hears him in his mind pretty much tell him, I'm fucking the boss now. You guys have fucked with me for so long because I'm a gay man, and I'm sure that that's what's happened. But I finally get to tell you what to do, and you see that, and that's why he pushes himself forward and kind of offers himself as like, I'm going to get in the middle of the situation because fuck this guy.
Yeah, he's like the buffer for it. Yeah. I love the way that they do it in the movie too. I'm talking about the movie a lot because I just like
Christopher
rewatched
Maloney.
it last night. I love him so much.
I do too. He's such a good character actor. He plays that tiny little part so very well. So
yes. And like, Christopher Maloney in general, because like he's just fantastic in everything that he does.
Yes.
But like, you can like, just that whole, you can tell the whole time when you're watching it and when you're reading it that he's got to stay professional. He's got to be cool about it. He's got to keep his job and shit. But like, the fact that he puts himself in there as a buffer, and he's just all like, you know what? I'm gonna be a little bright spot in your day. I really liked that.
And it's like, he's also like, well, you know what? I've got some privilege. Might as well use it. Let's just,
And that's one of those moments that I really felt it kind of translated to today, because it's a very us versus them mentality. I had a question to something that Erin had said earlier. How you had mentioned that part where you didn't know who was actually talking. Do you think that Hunter actually did that on purpose to kind of continue to make you feel a bit disjointed in terms of how, what was going on with the drugs and everything else?
I got the sense that, and not to compare myself to Hunter Thompson by any stretch of the imagination, but the character that I'm writing in the fiction book that I'm working on is a stripper, and there's a lot of truth that comes out in how I'm writing, because I can't write that as I'm writing that character who's very much not me, which you should all be grateful for. But there are elements in her personality that had to come from me, and so people that know me personally are going to see, they're going to recognize that. They're going to recognize those bits and pieces that actually came from true life, that are in the book. And our book takes place in Vegas too, because it was it was a place I was familiar with. So it was, it was easy to write about that place. I know. And even in Fear and Loathing, I recognize Circus is like the biggest turd on the strip, dude. It's like, don't go there by yourself.
That's the impression that I got. Yeah.
Speaking, I understand where everything is in relation to that book. But when he's writing about himself and he's writing about the drug trip, in my mind, I was wondering what is elements from his real life, and what is it, how much of this is he making up? And I don't think he made up a lot of it. I think he maybe embellished it, but for me, a lot of it rang true. And I, although I recognized that it was a fictional character he's writing, in my head, I'm wondering how much of this is real life, because there was no way, not knowing anything about the dude other than, like I said, some cursory stuff. I had known that he committed suicide and all this stuff. But I knew 100% going in that there was a lot of him in that character. That was not complete fiction. You don't write that way without knowing, without actually experiencing what he's writing.
Yeah. Why do you think that he did that, though? What do you think the point was of his embellishment? What was he trying to say with that?
I think there's a couple of things, but specific. I'm sorry, I just jumped in. Go ahead.
No, please.
I apologize. I'm so excited, and I got carried away. All right. There's this "No Sympathy for the Devil," which of course we all know is a Stones song, right? "Sympathy for the Devil." Yeah.
It's the only tape they've got, so they play it over and over again.
But there's this moment that given the proclivities of everyone on this panel right now, there's this moment when he's talking about his how he's crushed under the heel of his culture, and it's his stupid Christian upbringing, or it's the Christianity that's doing this to him, and he's like, "Lord, you better get me out of this. You better get me out of this, or you'll have to deal with me." It's like, if you don't get me out, you'll have to deal with me, because then I'll be where you are. It's this fantastic moment, and it's a moment of like. It's also really harshly self-aware, because he knows he's fucked up. It's when he gets pulled over by that highway cop, and he's also run out on that big bill, and he's freaking out. And it's a very self-aware moment of where he's like, I've been kind of a shitty human being here, and up until that point, I mean, he might be a nuisance, he might be a loudmouth, he's certainly drunk and high all the time, but he hasn't been a shitty human being. And that was a moment of intense self-doubt. And he actually used the word sin and sinner and this very religious language that doesn't show up in the rest of the book that I remember. And now I can't find the page, of course, because I'm looking for it. But yeah, it's what did you guys think about that bit? Because I thought that was pretty enlightening. I was like, what? That seems to be like the kind of religious stuff that stays with you because you were raised religious. And I know where he's from, Louisville, Kentucky, and I know a little bit about that area of Kentucky, and it's a very religious town. Like there's a lot of I mean, the whole East End used to be all Catholic, for example, and Muhammad Ali is from there too. So it's just like
yeah, you were talking about that's why he was like Hunter S. Thompson actually connected with Muhammad Ali in real life. Yeah. So
because they were both they're from the same hometown, and so anyway, I don't know. I was just wondering what you all thought about all the Jesus that because that's the only point when he's not like Jesus, God, man, or whatever. He's actually like Lord, Lord, Lord. It's a different. He's even using a different word, and I don't know. It stands out to me, and I was just wondering if it stood out to you guys.
Erin, how about you?
The only thing that makes me think about is that he was, I guess I didn't think that he was remorseful per se in the context of, like sin and that kind of stuff. I thought that he was more afraid of getting caught at that point. And the more that you mention that the lawyer may have been, and whether he was there figuratively or literally or just as a device or whatever, I still tend to think that the really bad stuff was really more projected on him, like the really, Hunter kind of made, or the character that he that was kind of like he was just there. I never got the sense that he was a real dickhead, where it was the lawyer who was really doing stuff that was bad news. And even in the hotel thing, it was kind of like, it's a little sketch, but what was he going to do? He had to get out of there. So, I don't know. I guess the religious part of it didn't really play real heavy for me.
Well, and I
think
do agree with you about the no remorse part. Okay, go ahead, Sam.
No, sorry, Manda.
No, I was going to actually speak to something you said earlier, how, it gets worse when the attorney is around. But I think he also, is able to see what's happening and kind of becomes a little more self-aware when he is around, like Erin said, whether or not the attorney is real, it doesn't really matter. But when he, has to confront these psychotic, things that the attorney does, he can see more of himself. And these are those are the moments he'll say things like, "Oh, ether is really, really fucking bad," and things like that. Do you kind of see that, Junkshop, if that he's seeing more of what's happening?
He also has this weird protective thing going on with his attorney, because his attorney is such a irredeemable fuck up. That every time the man turns around, there's some new disaster. There's he dumps out the cocaine by mistake, and that's on page 3.
That hurt.
It just gets worse from there until the point where he's blasted out of his mind, having eaten all of the blotter acid and ordered 300 bars of soap and submerged himself in $600 worth of bath salts. And but every step of the way, the Duke character has to. He has this nurturing attitude toward the attorney, and he won't let him kill himself, and he won't kill him for him. He locks him in the bathroom after he's taken the electrical appliance out. Can't get the knife away from him, but what can you do? He's in that weird circular rotating bar scenario. He makes sure he gets off of the bar and through the crowd and out the door safely. And
it's a weird kind of switching of roles, because
the idea that the attorney isn't really there, because there seems to be so much interaction that it doesn't really ring true to me if it's a device. I understand the argument. It just I don't smell it.
It's a very Tyler Durden sort of thing.
I disagreed with that exact argument when I was in grad school, so I'm glad that you disagreed. I just wanted to know what people thought. That's why I brought it up. Okay, I'm shutting up now. I've talked too much. But
well, I know that Miss Lewis has to go by 8, so I'm going to start wrapping up. But there was a quote that I found from Anthony Bourdain, which he's one of my, I love Anthony Bourdain. If you don't know who he is, he was a chef, but also a writer, and he struggled through some years, some drug addiction years. He did end up ending his own life a couple of years ago, like Hunter did, but he said that Thompson's wild, hyperbolic prose showed me not only a whole new way to see and think about things, a whole new way to live. I embraced the doctor wholeheartedly, developing a lifelong love for melodrama, overstatement, lurid imagery, damaged romanticism, and it is still apparent from my sentences. So I think if any of you have actually, I think that would be a great book if you guys haven't read it. Kitchen Confidential, we can obviously talk about it later, but I think if any of you have actually read any of Bourdain's stuff, you can kind of see that that influence from Hunter S. Thompson, and what he's written. And it's something that, I think in terms of the gonzo journalism and stuff, if you're reading into it, it says they don't know where it came from. I honestly think that Hunter S. Thompson was kind of the father of that phase, and he has influenced so many other writers as well as part of the counterculture and the end of counterculture. And it's still so relevant today because we're able to see that fight against the establishment, asking, what the fuck are we doing? Look around us. This is not okay. So I think what we'll do yeah, well, exactly. What we'll do is just go around the room really quick. For first time, we'll just any ending thoughts, and then we'll go back around and you guys can chill. So I'm going to end with Erin since she's my co-host. So let's start with Susan.
Let's see. I can honestly say Hunter S. Thompson and his writing style have definitely influenced a lot of, like, I sort of see things a little bit through a Thompson lens sometimes, where, like, because he was one of those writers that was influential to me from a very sort of formative age, I guess, because I was in like high school and stuff. There's certain writers and certain authors that we have that we consistently compare other writers to, because it's like, okay, like where is this on this scale? And that's sort of how it is with me with Hunter S. Thompson, just because that was, formative years of my life and shit. One thing that I did want to mention that I apologize since I had to step away and I had some freezing moments and stuff. Did anybody mention how fucking amazing Steadman's art is?
No,
because
yeah.
Ralph Steadman's art is so amazing and is such the perfect complement to all of Thompson's
the one
stuff.
Of the hitchhiker. I think that's my favorite one.
That poor kid. I have no idea.
Yeah. Like, if anybody wants to get me a Christmas / birthday present, a Ralph Steadman print is on a list somewhere. I love. So
it was a good compliment to the book.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Junkshop, how about you?
I'm coming from exactly the opposite end of the spectrum to Susan. Thompson was not a formative writer for me in my youth, and I've only read exactly one book by him, and that was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which I read yesterday afternoon. Other than being immensely impressed by how profoundly sad it was, as I already mentioned, I wasn't immensely impressed. It was a fun, wacky ride to be so goddamn sad, but I sort of see why somebody made it into a crappy road trip movie 20 years later, because that's essentially all it struck me as being, is a crappy road trip story with lots of drugs and two terribly, terribly damaged antagonists. And, if I want weird experimental fiction, I'm going to go back to Burroughs the next time I want some. Thompson didn't really grab me from this one.
That's okay. Everybody, it's fine to have, how about you, Julie?
Well, as Junkshop is fond of saying, if we liked all the same things, one of us would be superfluous. Given how much I talked during this, and I apologize for dominating a bit, I do that when I'm excited. I am a total fangirl when it comes to Hunter S. Thompson. If y'all remember an old comic that used to be in the Sunday paper and the weekly paper called Doonesbury, there was a character named
I love Doonesbury.
Yeah, do you remember that? That was my litmus test for me growing up. If I was appraised of current events or not was if I got that week's Doonesbury cartoon. Like if I got the joke, then okay, I knew what was up. But
all I learned about Vietnam, I learned from my parents' old volumes of Doonesbury. I'm not even lying.
Right? It's okay. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So I'm a huge fan and have been since since this was the first book of his I've read. Since then, I've read Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, and I have the Rum Diaries somewhere, but I haven't read them. I got kind of obsessed with his life, and I used to read his column the year before he committed suicide. I read his column a couple of times that was online by that point, but it was a sports column, and I don't like sports, so you could still tell it was him writing. I just wasn't that into the subject, but I think it's an important book, and that it captures, or as important as any single book can be, it's important in that it captures a turning point in our culture, where we went from the hippie movement to, the war on drugs and all of that stuff that we all talked about earlier. And I think that's, and the American dream, not really knowing what that was anymore. And I think that's an important thing, or the most important thing to take from it, other than his yummy writing, which is fun. Okay, I'm finished. Sorry, that was long.
No, thank you so much. Robbie, any?
Just to sort of reinforce the nobody heard. Going from someone who has watched the movie a bunch of times, look, it made a big difference. The movie, I agree with Junkshop, is just a road trip movie, fucked up and it get me.
Yeah, it was more visceral, I think. Thank you, honey. Erin, any last thoughts?
Well, I'm actually kind of in between Julie and Junkshop in that I really enjoyed his writing, and I really enjoyed just the trip. And then as I got to the end, I did find the last part was kind of boring. And then I was sort of disappointed almost that it did have a deeper meaning than just a fucked up road trip. Because it was like, oh, this is kind of fun and weird and cringy and messed up, but the writing is beautiful. And like I said, trying to decipher what was real in his writing and what was actually, what was made up and that kind of stuff. And then at the end you get hit with the message where it's kind of like, oh, we were having a good time. You didn't really want to think about anything serious. And so honestly, I really didn't think about a lot of it in that terms. I knew that he was saying something profound. I just kind of made a conscious effort to decide not to really think about it too deeply. And so actually, Julie, your commentary and you coming from your education and all that kind of stuff kind of taught me a lot and made me realize that I probably should have paid a little more attention to that stuff, because it did have a lot of deeper meaning that I missed because I was so enamored with the writing and his style of writing, and made me want to learn more about his life and that kind of stuff. Or maybe I don't, I'm not sure, but it was I found it an enjoyable book. But yeah, towards the end it was kind of like I think I would have enjoyed it more had it not been, had we could have just kept it a little more weird and funky and not had to think about any existential political meaning beyond, just a whole lot of drugs and weird shit. So,
No.
I think I will probably read more by him, although my reading list is stupid long. Yeah. So, but I would definitely want to read something else by him, especially now knowing a little bit more, and I will pay more attention.
Awesome. I think for me, I'm the same way. Like the first time I was exposed to it, I was kind of like, nah, this is just ridiculousness. But, kind of diving into what he was actually trying to say, and being able to read the book and seeing that there was something here, that was, that made me kind of more interested and understand it more. So we will go around the room and just chill. Anything you have to say. Susan, go ahead.
We should have a live stream this week. Hopefully. I don't know. Hopefully. I'm fingers crossed we have a live stream this week. I don't know. It'll probably be on Wednesday at what is so 6:00 our time, because we're Pacific.
9 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern. There we go. I can never do the translation. I can never remember what the
time zones are stupid.
Yeah. And then this coming weekend on Explain Like I'm Five, I have Irish Swede. He's probably going to talk about the like differences between like social democracy and socialism and communism and stuff. So I'm very excited about that. I have some really awesome guests lined up for Explain Like I'm Five. And I actually want to get every single one of y'all that's in here on that at some juncture in time. I'm scheduled out until like late January, so I'm gonna have to talk to y'all sort of as I go.
No one's scheduled for me, so I'm really bad at this. Thank you so
I
much.
plan ahead way too much, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't. I used to, but yeah. How about you, Julie?
Oh, I've got Wine and Reason at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have no idea what it is Pacific. On Tuesday
12.
night and 12. Okay, there we go. And I mainly do it at 2 p.m. because there's some lovely people in Denmark, Sweden, and in England that like to be there. So it's a little early for me to be having a glass of wine by puritanical American standards, but I usually have a glass of wine and complain about whatever current event has me pissed off that week, and often misogyny. So that's fun. So if you like a good time, that's also kind of a downer. Come by. Okay, I'll stop talking now.
Thank you. Junkshop?
We stream improv Bible study at 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's usually about an hour long where we read the King James Bible and then explain how much we hate it verse by verse. Same time on Thursdays, we do Mental Health Thursday, which is a much more laid back hangout where we just all sit around and swap mental health coping mechanisms and tips, which we found we need more and more as time goes along.
I
Yes,
like that.
absolutely.
I really like that.
Oh, and we have
MathPig?
a couple stream. I'm sorry, I remembered on
What?
Thursday. In theory,
Okay.
that's
Yeah. MathPig?
Good speed of sound coming. Open mics are
Yeah, Cadence is awesome. Erin?
Well, I am busy writing. Obviously, I have my 3 books out that are available on my website, Amazon, and Audible. And my website blog page also has articles and interviews and things like that. Been working on fiction lately, so if you follow me either on my website at erinlouis.com or actually Goodreads is like my favorite social media site of all time at this point because it's no drama and all books. So
nice.
and that way you can keep up with what I'm reading and what I'm writing. As new things get published, it shows up, and obviously on Twitter I'm gonna promote that as much as I can because I am my own PR person, at least until hopefully when my book comes out. That might be a little different story, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Amanda's gonna actually get to be a beta reader there, so
Excited. It's like I've kind of experienced some of this journey with Erin because she tells me about like, oh, I'm writing today, and she tells me, oh, I was able to write for so long, and it just I'm very excited to read this book, so I cannot wait, and I'm honored that you will let me do that. So, but everybody's links are in the description, so make sure that you go check everybody out. And make sure that you get Erin's books because seriously, they're so awesome and amazing. Myself, I will be on Atheist Pastor's channel sometime this week. Chris Atlee is to talk about climate change. Jen Aldrich and I are working on a climate change video together, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing next week. And then I'm always around on Dark Matters Twitch. So. I want to thank everybody in the audience for coming tonight, for experiencing this with us. I think this was really great. It wasn't just a boring, what happened in the book kind of chat. I think we got through a lot of really interesting stuff. And we picked a really great group here. And we missed Neil, of course, but this was a great job, guys. I had so much fun. Thank you to my co-host, Erin, who I adore so much. And we will see you next week sometime. Bye. Don't forget to think critically. Night, everyone.
Love you, Neil's mom.
Bye.
Get better, please. Oh,
Ooh.
did we lose Erin? Yeah, she had to go.
All right, I gotta turn this light out because I'm gonna get a migraine if I'm looking at it any longer. Woo! Hi.
I think that went really well. So thank you guys so much. But I think I feel. Yeah, we were able to discuss. It was an interesting conversation instead of just like I said, just like what happened in the book. So and
Oh,
I was
I had a
really
blast.
appreciative
I-
that Susan, you were able to step in. Do you want to join our book club? This is going to be a probably monthly thing, month and a half. We will pick a new book. Okay, then I will add you to our book club list. So we'll just I'm gonna talk to Erin. Like I said, she really had to go at 8 o'clock, so that's why she just bounced. But there's two books that I'm thinking of. There's The Lamb by Christopher, I can't remember his name, but it's this book about Jesus's brother. It's really funny.
I have it.
We've got a copy.
We've got a copy.
Yeah. Or